how we choose materials for our classes. Um, the reason why I take the angle of performance or performing Indonesia is that because Indonesian language is very performative. There is a very strong element of performativity in Indonesian language. So even if you teach beginning Indonesians, it is enjoyable, not necessarily semantically, but because how you perform it. So this thing about oh begitu, the beginning students love to say oh begitu, oh begitu, begitu. So just this thing oh begitu, they love it. So this like my routine in my class is to say begitu in different way with different kind of meaning, right? And now the current Indonesian term, the slang that is so popular and annoying right now is the term zaman now. So that's why now is part of Indonesian language now. So here, terus gue bilang wow gitu, wow gitu. Wow is also in the last 5 years a part of Indonesian. Emangnya gue terus harus bilang wow gitu. You want me to wow you with this kind of silly thing, or things like that. So a lot of loan word with a twist of meaning. Now, so the fact that we want to include culture in our language, there's inevitable relationship between culture and language. Then there's a questions of what culture, which of the Indonesian culture that you want to introduce. And yesterday, there was a contrast between the traditional culture and the contemporary cultures. But you also have regional cultures, indigenous cultures. There are so many choices in defining cultures as the background or the basis of our language teaching. And then yesterday we talked about Pak Udiono, who is an expert in playing gamelan, performing wayang. He is a cultural expert. And fortunately, he is also teachers of language and Indonesian cultures. Michael J is the contemporary versions of Pak Udiono with a different kind of culture that he transmit to the students. So now we have to decide which one. And I would say that we can use this kind of a crude distinction between the thick culture, or culturally thick and culturally thin. Gamelan is definitely very thick. It's very easy, it's gampang untuk bilang wow to gamelan and dance. But then it's hard to use it for teaching language as well as to teach it to the students to perform it. I taught Kuda Lumping in one of the Gold Creek primary school. And I have 50 students doing Kuda Lumping. Right? But Kuda Lumping is much thinner than say Tari Bali or Wayang. Right? But then you will see that Michael J could grab the students because what he teaches is, I can say it, culturally thin. And you can relate it to the popularity of K-pop. If you look at the structure, the musical structure of K-pop, it's Western. There's no different. It's diatonic, the musical structure, the way the instrument is set, it's Western, right? But there is a twist. It is in Korean, and there is something about it that you can call it Korean. But then if you learn language, the signified and the signifier, the relationship is basically arbitrary. So if you close your eyes, probably you listen to the music and you don't know the language, it could be any Western song. So this is one of the decisions also that you may want to consider what kind of culture that you want to teach the students who are the cultural expert as well as the most important and most cumbersome is how to transform these cultural elements into teaching material. Okay. And then further than that, and this is something that's quite a serious problem, and ANU has been involved in doing this in the names of giving what we call it social studies, or Asian studies, or Southeast Asian studies, or Indian studies to the teachers, so that they have more both updated information about the situation, as well as some kind of approaches, somewhat analytical approach in looking at the social, political, and cultural phenomena and how to teach that. And I'm going to give you an example or demonstrations of how it is. Now, so this is a kind of a strong relationship between culture and language teaching. And the way how we define culture, probably one of the person who has been used in looking at culture is Raymond William. I use his thinking and his approach in culture and language, especially from his book, Keyword. And actually, I and my colleague created a course, Keyword, which is offered in the last 4 years at the NU for year 11 and 12. And what we do is basically, Raymond William believed that we can understand society, people, or country through a set of concepts which define the country, whether it's culture, politics, and whatnot. Just keyword through which we can unpack the country, the culture, or the people. Just to give you an example, what is the keyword? Indonesian keyword during New Order is pembangunan, right? But now nobody talk about pembangunan, which means that even the word, the concept that comes along with it changes through time. So here, for Raymond William, language has a history. The word democracy in the Western civilization changes a lot. And the way how it has been given an absolute value right now is probably no more than 100 years old. Before that, democracy was rejected by even America, because democracy assumed the same right of each individual regardless of your background. And at the time, the gentry was still in power, even in America. So the idea of the slave and the gentry have the same right is totally alien to them, right? Australia is very upfront in promoting the first time that women can vote. So good for Australia. So here, pembangunan is no longer popular. Right? So what is popular now? Reformasi is off. So we need also to understand the history of certain sets of words which tell stories about the society. Here I want to also to see how Raymond William also believed that the performative aspect of language. Now, let me give you a couple of contexts here, the Indonesian context and as well as the context in the world, more or less, particularly in Southeast Asia. So Indonesia now, this is basically the situation, state is no longer hegemonic and no longer dominant in telling stories or narrative about the nation, basically. You remember the story about Indonesia, Pancasila, Pembangunan, Orde Baru is the same. But now there are a lot of alternative narratives about Indonesia. And they are as spread, as powerful in persuading the members of the national communities in looking at who they are in terms of identity formation, as well as the nation. And there is a very strong change from what's called political culture. Political culture, what it means here is that basically how you understand a country or a nation through a particular cultural traits that they have. This, in political science, is a very dominant approach from 1960s to 1980s, before it's replaced by the political economic approach, in which you can compare the country on the basis of the economic performance, basically. So in Indonesia, now identity politics is very basically dominant in defining everyday life, especially in politics. What I mean by identity politics here is that how identity becomes a driving force in your political, social, and cultural behavior. Now, during the New Order, there are at least 3 groups that has been marginalized by the state with the dominance or hegemonies of the state. And that's the women, minorities, and Islam. So you can understand after the Reformasi, then these 3 groups is the one that really assert themselves to be really wide, to be really present in the political national arena. So you will see the minority, particularly the Chinese, okay, the Chinese identity. At the beginning of the Reformasi, 1998 until 2002 probably, instead of using Chinese identity, they use Asian identity. With the coming of the Korean TV drama, Mingse, the something garden. Yes, yes, that one is very popular. And I have a lot of friends who's so addicted to that TV drama. And they said that, oh, during the New Order, we were taught to hate the Chinese. And now I'm addicted to something Chinese. Right? The assertions of Chinese identity in political arena and social arena in Indonesia got its peak with Ahok, the Cahaya Purnama. You follow what happened with the election in Jakarta and his demise. But now it is okay to have a Chinese as a political figure, and Ahok has proven that he has performed very, very well. But at the same time, because of the identity political trend, then also the rise of Islam. So Islam has been mainstreaming itself through different kind of venue, particularly in popular Islam in the form of the publication industry, the film with the ayat-ayat cinta and the others that follows, right? And also the communities of writers and cultural workers, cultural producers, who identify themselves as the Islamic product. I would say Islamic commodity. So here, recent research has demonstrated that 70 to 80% of Indonesians would identify themselves first religiously, and then only second nationally. This is something that was unthinkable until Reformasi or even until 2000. And you know that this is the kind of project, huge project, that become the burden or the task of the fathers of the nations for the countries who got their independence after the Second World War, and that is the national building, the national identity construction. Sukarno, Tito, Gamal Abdul Nasser, Sihanouk, Nelwyn, all these, the first project is to construct national identity. And the reason why? Because their national territory is not natural. It was determined by the colonizers. And because of that, then we have plural societies. So the boundary of the nation state is decided through the map. Somewhere in either in Amsterdam or in London or in Washington DC, that this is yours, this is mine. And the colony had to struggle to say that, oh yeah, we belong to the same national community. But by 1990s, the national territories conceptually become porous, especially with the installment of the stock market in which capital, technology, and people flow very freely. Now,